May I have your attention? We're ready for the positive exercise.
santificado sea tu nombre, venga a nosotros tu reino, hágase tu voluntad, como en la tierra como en el cielo. Danos hoy nuestro pan de día, perdona nuestras ofensas, como también nosotros perdonamos a los ofensores. No nos dejes caer en tentación, mas líbranos del mal. Amén.
Well, I actually often been thinking of giving it enough time, and I may even have given it in the past. I don't know. And since I don't know, it's not going to really matter because I won't repeat myself. I'll say some things, but many things will be different because some of this will be sort of off the cuff. What I wanted to do was to talk about Mexico City. So you're probably asking, why would he want to talk about Mexico City? Because Mexico's been in the news lately, as you know, and not all of it's very positive. One of the things we want to do with our institute is present a more informed, but also positive picture of the Spanish-speaking world. And one of the things I want to do, if I can, in the weeks to come, occasionally, is talk about some of my favorite cities in Mexico, because I think that Mexico, though known and very, very, very important as a center and attraction for tourism, is not fully appreciated, let's just put it that way. For me, when I think of Mexico, I know that many people, in fact, probably if you were to add up the numbers, you would find that thousands and thousands of people know the coast in Mexico, parts of the coast. They maybe been to Cancun, they've been to that area. I'm of course now thinking of our missionaries, like Lisa John, who've actually been to Saltillo and surrounding areas. But not everyone knows that Mexico City itself is actually a very, very interesting city. In fact, many of you have probably heard me say again and again, maybe you picked up on this, that I have a special love for Madrid. I think Madrid is just this incredible city. No, not just Madrid. Madrid is an incredible city. I love Madrid. Don't get me wrong. If you can say to me, well, you can go now and you can spend a month in any city in the world. Where do you want to go? I would probably say Madrid. But having said that, I want to say this to you. In terms of things to see, in terms of just the richness of what's there, Madrid doesn't compare with Mexico City. Why do I say it? Let me see if I can convince you. Because Mexico City has a history. It's not that it's that ancient, but it has a very, very interesting past. I don't know if it's good. First of all, who were the founders? Traditionally, we think that the founders of what we now call Mexico City were the people we call the Mexicas. You don't know how happy it makes me to hear you say that. And no, everyone listen, why did you say Mexicas? Because she knows that I always object to the term Aztec. Why? Do you remember that also? Because it was introduced by, it was Wilhelm von Humboldt. It was the naturalist Wilhelm von Humboldt who traveled to Mexico and talked with people and so on. Really, es Nueva España still. And he said, so where did these people come from? And he met Nahuatl speakers. Where did you come from? And they said, Aztlan. Well, you must be Aztecs. You must be the people from Aztlan. You must be Aztecs. And I hate to say it, that actually took. And so much so that in Mexico, most of the people in Mexico, dangerous to say most, but I bet you the majority, you say, no, who were the people who founded Mexico City? Los Aztecas. They would say Los Aztecas. Everything in Mexico is Azteca. El Club Azteca, El Estadio Azteca, El Equipo Azteca. So on, everything is Azteca. But actually, that's not the right term. When you go to the most incredible museum you will ever see, Museo Nacional de Antropología, Mexico City, you won't see, except in parentheses, the name Azteca, Aztec. You will see the name Mexica, the Mexicas. The Mexicas, and their name means, there's the Mexicas. Let's stay here for a second. The Mexicas are the people from the center of the world. How do I know? Their name itself, Meshi, center. Mexica, the people from the middle. They, in fact, said that the city was built in the ombligo of the world, in the center of the world. That's where you get the name Mexico. Mexico. From the Mexica people. Mexico. We call it Mexico. That name was adopted, by the way, Mexico, for the new nation, which became independent in what year? It's not a test. I just want to see if anyone remembers. Mexico becomes an independent nation in what year? 1821. Excellent. 1821. Now, when you see, please stay here, you know, something, this aberration, pyramids of Mexico City. Pyramids of Mexico City. I suppose to a person traveling who knows nothing about Mexico, they would say, oh yes, these are the pyramids of Mexico City. Actually, Teotihuacan is not Mexico City. It's outside of Mexico City. And it was a place of culture, of the culture of the Teotihuacanos, which disappeared in the year, we think, 700 AD. Now, remember something. Many of these dates, this is very important to remember, are the approximations. What dating system do we have? Well, we sometimes have codices, right? Or we have testing methods, chemical tests, and so on. But we can't know with certainty and with that much precision exactly what many of these dates are. But we know that the Teotihuacanos, look there it is, you can see it's not in Mexico City, but it's in the valley of Mexico. There is a central valley, a valle de Mexico, that includes Mexico City and surrounding areas. How many people do you imagine live in the Valley of Mexico today? Take a wild guess. I'm gonna choose someone. I'm not gonna hold back, I'm actually gonna pick someone and say, you give me a rough estimate on how many people live in the Valley of Mexico. Go ahead. You're on. You're on.
5 million.
Now, see, 5 million, that's a lot of people, isn't it? Right? That's roughly the population of Madrid, 5 million, right?
20 million.
That's low.
Wow.
It's not 5 million. Let's see how many, now we're talking about the Valley of Mexico, the Valley of Mexico in the middle. Or let's change it. Let's say in the greater Mexico City area. In the greater Mexico City area. Another guess, go ahead.
20 million?
Over 20 million. Over 20 million people live in the Mexico City area. When was this city founded? When was the city founded? Does anyone know? This is actually not an ancient city, which makes it even, in a way, more amazing that I would say there are more things to see there than Madrid, and I'm certainly a big fan of Madrid. There's no comparison. There's no comparison when you see what there is to see in Mexico. Distrito Federal means DC, like our Washington DC. This is Mexico DF. This area has way more than 20 million people. It's had more than 20 million people for over 20 years. And it grows, and it continues to grow. Why does it continue to grow? Because, like in so many other countries in Latin America, the people move from the provinces to the capital. It's always movement. Many times in Mexico, I've been visiting friends or relatives. Let's say it's a Sunday night, and I say, I've got to go back to Mexico City soon. Let's say it's 6 o'clock. They say, well, we'll take you to catch the bus. I'm not making this up. Let's get your bags. I'll walk out with my bags, and I'll walk over to the edge of town. Let's say Salamanca, Guanajuato, which I've done this many times, where they'll drive me, and they'll say, just wait here, we'll wait with you. And within 5 minutes, a bus comes by, and you'll see that on the bus, right there in front, it'll say, May. And I'll say, should I take this one? They'll say, no, that one takes 5 hours. Let's wait a little longer. 10 minutes later, another bus comes by and says, May. What about this one? Oh, no, that's not the one for you. That's not the one for you, primo, cousin. No, that's not the one for you. Let's wait for the next one. So we wait for here we go. This one's a nice one. And it stops and it opens, and I walk in and say, this is your bus. Bus directo. What does that mean? Bus directo. Non-stop. Takes me right through Celaya, takes me right through Querétaro, all the way to Mexico DF. We get to Mexico City, everything goes to Mexico City. Everything. That's what happens. It's true. I'm not so sure it's that different in France. Everything gets toward Paris, right? It's the big city, it's where all the action is, it's the way things work, I think. But in Mexico, I know it's that way. In Mexico City, you can't even imagine. Here's one of the population figures. Go ahead. Here it says 20,843,000 people. That's it says the fourth largest city in the world. This is one of the places where you'll find a population. But no one knows exactly the population of Mexico City, but we know that population is a mess. But does anyone remember the story of how the capital for the Mexicas was selected? Surely you do. Let's go back to that story. This is the story of the founding of the city that was originally called Teotihuacan. I didn't say Tenochtitlan, as in the pyramids, right? I didn't say Tenochtitlan, I said Teotihuacan. Often in Mexico, pronounced Teotihuacan, Teotihuacan. But in Nahuatl, it's Teotihuacan. Go ahead.
Was it place where the eagle landed on the cactus?
Exactly. And what did the eagle have in its mouth?
Oh,
A serpent. Who says no? Correct. Mexican map. What do you see? You see the eagle with the serpent in its mouth. That is, right? That is the symbol of Mexico. The story that the Mexicas, there it is, told was that they were to follow this trail moving south because we don't know where they started. There are many theories about where the Mexicas started, where their place of origin was. Some people say Arizona, which is not out of question because the language of the Mexicas, Nahuatl, is connected and belongs to the same family as some of the languages of Utah and Arizona. It's true. They're connected, they're related. They're the same family. Well, the Mexicas are said to have followed this trail south until they were to see an eagle with a serpent in its mouth. And when they saw that eagle, here's a good one, with the serpent in its mouth, they were to build their city there. The problem is that eagle landed right on a small island in the middle of a lake. So they built their city on a lake.
It's thinking.
Pardon?
It's thinking.
Yeah. Well, and those who know much about Mexico City know that in the history of Mexico City, there were actually several lakes. There were several lakes, and so the Mexicas founded their city there. Now we're talking about a group that's not that large. This is not Mexico City. This again, let's go back to Mexico City. They built their city, and it started to grow, and soon it had grown so much that they left one of the first places, which was like an island, and they moved to a series of other little areas, and they decided that they were going to connect them all by bridges, and they did. And the bridges themselves were portable bridges. This was really a great idea. They would build these bridges so that people could cross from one land area to the next, pretty long bridges, and all of their trade could be done by boat. They could load up these boats, travel along the water. What city in Europe do you think of when you think of people? That's great. Traveling along the water. What city do you think of? Venice is a good example, right? We have the water taxis and so on. Another city you can think of?
Venezia.
Pardon?
Venezia.
Yeah, Venezia. Another city you can think of? Actually, in Holland, right, this is not so unusual. In Amsterdam, it's a good example of we have a lot of water travel. Now look, here we go. So the Mexicas have this area, and it begins to grow. By the 14th century AD, we know that they're already there. They're building communities. We know this from the codices that at this time, the place we would now call Mexico City was already inhabited by this group called the Mexicas. And the language they would speak was, what's their language? Nahuatl. If you want to see an incredible history of the Nahuatls, when you go to the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City, you will see more. I have to say that it's amazing when you think of all that's collected there. Because in Mexico City, at this incredible museum, they collected pre-Columbian ruins from all over Mexico. That means they have this amazing collection of Olmec heads from the Olmecas. These, these date from 1000 BC. They have all kinds of artifacts from the Chichimegas, from the Toltecas, one group after another, and the one you were thinking of course, is the Mayas, right? Well, in the south, now this is south of the area I'm talking about. I'm talking about the valley. I'm talking about where Mexico City. This is the museum itself. Here's the museum. There is the famous. What do we see in this picture? Pardon? We also see the Aztec calendar. The Aztec calendar, right? It's called, in English, the Aztec calendar, right? It's also called the Piedra Primaveral by people who speak Nahuatl. The Piedra, the stone spring, the Piedra Primaveral, there it is. It has 5 circles. The 5 circles all represent an age of history. And the last age is called the age of the Quinto Sol, the 5th sun. That's our age.
I was gonna say, aren't we there now?
That's our age, the age of the Quinto Sol. You can see this and thousands of other artifacts. I think that our museum on the OU campus of natural history is one of the most impressive museums you'll see at a university in the United States. That museum is small potatoes. It's a different thing when you compare it to this museum in Mexico, the Museum of Anthropology. Look at this. These actually, many of these artifacts are from, in English we say Aztecs, they're from Mexica culture. Where was the capital? It was Mexico City. How far south, eventually, we think of the Mexicas growing 14th century, 15th century. By the beginning of the 16th century, right before the arrival of the Spanish, how far south did the empire of the Mexicas reach? Who can tell me? Pardon? I always tell this story, right? All the way to the place that is called in Nahuatl, Nicaragua, which means here ends Anahuac. Here ends these. It's not that that's the Aztec Empire. It's that there are people there paying tribute, paying taxes. It's the far reaches. They're paying taxes. When the Mexicas arrived, they went to that place. Look, here's our map. Here's our chronology. Notice some of the important rulers of the Mexicas, 1427 to 1440 and so on. One of Moctezuma the First, 1440 to 1469. And look, the last Moctezuma, the one conquered by Cortez, Moctezuma the Second, 1502 to 1519. That's his reign. 1519, of course, we know he dies. Now, in the siege of Mexico, if you start thinking of Mexico City, the Mexicas were not an ancient people, but they, reached out, and one of the places where they went was Tenochtitlan. They went to Teotihuacan. Let's go back to Teotihuacan. They went to this place and they said, now this place is so big. They named it Teotihuacan. This place is so big that it must have been inhabited by giants. So they called it the land of the giants. Because it was bigger than anything they'd ever seen. Did anyone live there when the Mexicas arrived? This is probably, a day's walk from the center of the capital, Teotihuacan. Here it's Romanized Teotihuacan. Did anyone live there? No. There was vegetation all over, not excavated at all. In fact, does anyone know when excavation was started in Teotihuacan? It started really early 20th century, in the 19th century. And the people who were there, those first excavators said, you know, surely these are pyramids. So when they excavated, they cut them. They cut the pyramid of the sun so that it would look like one of the pyramids of Egypt. It actually didn't have that shape. But when you're excavating, you see they were cutting and think, surely this has the same shape. I mean, after all, it is a pyramid. Let's make it look like the pyramids of Egypt. But it didn't really have that shape. Only later did they discover, no, that's not really the shape. Look, this is more the shape. This is actually the pyramid of the moon. La Pirámide de la Luna, which you get to walking here, the pyramid of the sun is here. You walk, the temple of the sun is here, and you walk down this road, which is very long. And it's called La Avenida de los Muertos, the Avenue of the Dead. Why is it called that? Because that is where they would take prisoners to sacrifice them, walk them down that avenue. It's actually quite a climb when you go up to the top of this temple. Now there's a handrail. There didn't used to be anything. There's no ambulance there, no medical staff, no handrail, and the steps are about that big. You know, they're about that wide. You just walked up there and you prayed going up and you prayed coming down. Because when you came down, if you didn't know how to walk down, you pretty much would sit down and just kind of slide down. Because if you didn't do that, you could fall forward. Very steep, very steep. It's a real challenge if you walk out, of course, in the condition I'm in now. I think I would try something like this, maybe after about 45 minutes and 3 beers. I might try it, I don't know. But you know, to go up to the top, these young students just love to fly up there. My 2 young sons loved it also. They would just shoot up here. But that's not even, let's now return to Mexico City. We haven't even gotten to the Spanish. When the Spanish got there, they saw a city that Cortez said must have at least 100,000 inhabitants. He may have been exaggerating, but he said it's easily larger than Sevilla. So you say, how large was Sevilla in the time of Hernán Cortez? It's the largest city in Spain. It surely had 100,000 people. He said, it's larger than Sevilla. This place is amazing. And here you can even see some of the bridges, which would be a big factor in the conquest. Why? Because Cortez saw those bridges and said, if we take those bridges out, they're trapped. And he was right. They did that. They took the bridges out, took them out. And that was actually, you know, after the initial battles, in fact, the Spanish lose the initial battle. As they're leaving here, the bridge is removed and they try on horseback to leave all the things they've stolen. And the horses and the men drown. What is that, the night of that battle called? Does anyone know in the history of Mexico City? It's called Noche Triste, sad night. Cortez is sick. He escapes with some men. He's standing away from the city, away from the people who chased him out. He's sick as a dog. And he says, I know that we can win this battle. We just have to be patient. This is an amazing story. It's a true story. You can say, You're glorifying this man who was a horrible man, who was a horrible murderer, and so on. Let me be clear about something. The native peoples afterwards were great admirers of Cortez. And they wanted him to stay because when he would leave, chaos. Chaos would reign. When he left for Honduras, came back after a long, and there, everything had gone sour. There was corruption everywhere. The native peoples had been brutalized. They said, "We want Cortez back." Why? Because he maintained order. No, this is not what we're going to do. We're going to do A, B, and C. One of the early Franciscans who traveled through Mexico, he's part of what are called the 12 Apostles, the first 12 Franciscans, is Fray Toribio de Benavente. Toribio de Benavente is called Montolinia, whose name in Nahuatl means the poor one. He writes about Cortez and he said, if only the others could be as just and fair as Cortez. If only the others. He actually has a very different take than you might expect. Fray Toribio, here he is, himself baptized over 300,000 Indians. Over 300,000. He worked day and night. He's an amazing figure. He wrote a history of the experiences of the first 12 Franciscans in what is now Mexico. An amazing figure. Many of them lived fairly long lives. A couple of them died early, but he was one of the ones who lived long enough to write about his experiences. And of course, he writes because he's commanded to write. We want you to write a history of this. And he writes it. He writes about Cortez. He writes about those early years of the conquest. Already in the 16th century, the Spanish are beginning to build their community. One of the things they say we need to do is, look, we need to make this into a city, so we need to somehow channel this water. We're either going to find a way to channel it out and fill in these areas where the lakes are now, or we'll redesign it some way with a new configuration. They decide to do that. That is why Mexico City today, because of the decisions of the Spanish then, is a city still built on lakes, even though it's all been filled in. And there are parts of the city that are like this, right? The old basilica of the Virgin of Guadalupe was like this. Does anyone know how that was finally leveled in the late 1960s? How was that done? With water pressure underneath. And then see, so that they were able to bring it up so that it was level. And then, of course, they put in what they needed to do, right, to bring it to, this is the old church. The old basilica. It's one of the most important sights you see when you go to Mexico City. Is, in fact, the Villa de Guadalupe Hidalgo. That's the full name. La Villa de Guadalupe Hidalgo, like the treaty signed after the Mexican-American War, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. That treaty was signed in the Basilica here of Our Lady of Guadalupe. You'll see that, but there are countless churches in Mexico City. Let's see the Zócalo. The Zócalo, the main square, was actually built on top of the main square that already existed, where the Mexicas had lived. This square, here's a better picture, is enormous. The National Palace is here. Hundreds of thousands of people easily fit into the square. And behind the Zócalo, if you can come to the Templo Mayor, behind the Zócalo, excavated in the 1970s and 1980s, is what is called the Templo Mayor. There it is. The Templo Mayor, this was actually the central temple of the Mexicas. where, quite honestly, human sacrifice was practiced routinely. On one very famous festival day, one of the most celebrated of the Mexica leaders, emperors, sacrificed 80,000 people. How did they pick their victims? Well, mostly captives. Captives from wars. The Mexica were in war were unbeatable. They had defeated all their neighbors. They had enslaved them all. They took the victims to this Templo Mayor, and there they sacrificed them. I was meeting with a man in Mexico this past summer, and he said, I know just the place we can meet. And he wanted to meet me at a restaurant, which is on top of a very famous bookstore there in Mexico City. And that bookstore actually, here's a big one here. It's this bookstore right here. Overlooks the Templo Mayor. In fact, that almost looks like me. It's amazing how I appear everywhere. It's incredible. So I'm sitting there with him. That's actually the bookstore right there. And at the top of that, there's now this beautiful restaurant that overlooks the Templo Mayor. And I wanted to say to him, because he's a very famous historian in Mexico, are you sure you want to eat there? I mean, are you sure that you're going to be comfortable overlooking this place? You know, he said the food is wonderful, but the whole time I'm thinking, I'm just not that comfortable sitting here thinking what happened here. Mexico City is way more than just the Templo Mayor, which in itself is an amazing sight. It's way more if we could go back to the Zócalo. The Zócalo, which comes from the Nahuatl word, which means Socot, the cornerstone of the city, right? Where the city, it begins here with a stone. That's the Socot, Zócalo. Zócalo means main square, the plaza. This church is the Cathedral of Mexico. It is, from the outside, maybe you say, well, it's not that impressive. Inside, it's unbelievable. That neighborhood behind it is also a very, very interesting neighborhood with some of the old houses from Mexico from earlier times. There are many old mansions in Mexico from the 18th century in Mexico City, some from the 17th century. And when you begin to think about not just the museums, and by the Michelin Guide, there are 5,000 museums in Mexico City. 5,000 registered museums in Mexico City. You start looking around Mexico City and you see one thing after another. The Church of Santo Domingo, one of the oldest Dominican churches in all the New World, where Fray Bartolomé de las Casas once lived. You see let's see if we could go to La Plaza de las Tres Culturas, La Plaza de las Tres Culturas, which is Tlatelolco. Tlatelolco, here we go, this is it. Tlatelolco is called La Plaza de las Tres Culturas, the Plaza of the Three Cultures. Why? Because you have one of the oldest Franciscan churches in all of Mexico. It is said that San Juan Diego was baptized in that church. There was, on this site, a college called El Colegio de Tlatelolco. It's called La Plaza de las Tres Culturas because you have pre-Columbian, you have colonial Mexico in the Franciscan church, and then you have modern Mexico and the apartment complex behind. So it's La Plaza de las Tres Culturas. You have, if we can see, let's see if we can you find a picture of Sanford's? There's one of these, I'll end in just a minute. There's an amazing restaurant, which is called Sanford's, which is a chain in Mexico. But the original Sanford's It's called La Casa de los Azulejos. La Casa de los Azulejos, which in English is the house, there it is, the house of the blue tiles. It was owned by a very, very rich family in the 16th century. That's level 1 of Sandburns, Mexico City. When we go there, we should do a field trip. We will go to Sandburns, and on that ground level, we'll start off with some enchiladas suizas. These are typical dishes from Sandburns. Or maybe, I don't know, there's so many dishes you can have there. The second floor, look at those plates. Those plates are talavera, that beautiful ceramic talavera, which is Italian style, but really became very, very popular in Puebla, Mexico City. We'll go there to the Casa de los Azulejos, which means the house of the blue tiles. You can do some shopping there as we walk in, and then we'll have dinner there at that incredible old, it was a mansion, as I say, in the 16th century. Later sold, it became a restaurant. It was purchased by the Sandburn family. Can we see a picture of from the outside or not? It's near the Tower of Mexico City, which looks like a miniature Empire State Building. It's on a street called Madero, named after a Mexican president. There it is. That's the Casa de los Azulejos, blue tiles outside, all around. Here they are. You see them a little better here. It's an incredible place. We haven't even started talking about Chapultepec, Reforma. Maybe we talked a little bit about La Villa de Guadalupe. Can you see that this city is fascinating? We'll talk more later. Muchas gracias. For any students who attend together, you can turn in your conversation with Rachel. She's picking up the conversations because Jennifer is ill today.
So everything that they